Hello and welcome to the first GAPS lesson. These lessons were put together by Dr. Campbell McBride to introduce people to the concept of the gut and psychology syndrome protocol, also called the gut and physiology syndrome protocol, and look at the details of it and how it works and how to implement it. It's a series of lessons, and this is the first one, introducing you to gut and psychology syndrome. My name's Sarah Hamrati. I'm a clinical nutritionist and a GAPS practitioner, and I work at the Brain Food Clinic in the West Midlands. So let's start with this first lesson. This is the GAPS concept. As I've said, it's an abbreviation for gut and psychology syndrome and gut and physiology syndrome. That latter one is less well known. This concept has been created by Dr. Campbell McBride back in 2004 when she published her first book, which was called Gut and Psychology Syndrome. Dr. Natasha's a medical doctor. She's got 2 postgraduate degrees in neurology and nutrition. Now, the GAPS protocol, just like all nutritional protocols, go by the idea that all diseases begin in the gut. And this is not just about how gut flora might influence our behaviour and the way that we feel and our general health, including our immune system health, but also how absorption can be compromised, and that lack of absorption of key minerals, how that can really create problems for our health, both physically and mentally. So the GAPS syndrome establishes that connection between the state of the gut and the health of the rest of the body. Recent research has established a fact that about 90% of all genetic material and all cells in the human body is our gut flora. So we are just 10% a shell providing a little habitat for this mass of microbes. Their role in our human physiology is monumental, and we shouldn't ignore them. In a healthy person with a healthy gut flora, this mass of microbes is dominated by the beneficial or probiotic species, which are involved in many functions in the body. The gut flora is made out of 3 groups. So we have the essential or the beneficial flora, which are the ones that we want to have plenty of within our guts. There are opportunistic flora, which are ones that we don't want, that tend to flourish when conditions aren't so great in the gut. And lastly, we have the transitional flora, which are a flora that have their effects as they work through the body, but tend not to hang around and colonize the gut. So what are our gut flora there for? What are their roles? They have a number of roles. They protect us from invaders, so they protect us from opportunistic bacteria that might like to cause us ill health. They protect the integrity of the gut. Too many of the wrong kind of gut flora can lead to a leaky gut or issues with inflammation. They support appropriate digestion and absorption. They're involved in the production of some vitamins, and they support detoxification and are massively important when it comes to immune system modulation. So let's have a little think about what can damage our gut flora. I mean, unfortunately, it's many things. Antibiotics have the power to wipe out good and bad gut flora, but in doing so, they allow bacteria and yeasts that aren't affected by the antibiotics to flourish. So you may get an overgrowth of opportunistic yeast or maybe Clostridia bacteria. Their spores can flourish because they're not killed necessarily by broad spectrum antibiotics. The use of steroids that can severely damage the gut flora, as can using the contraceptive pill, which is a form of steroid. Other drugs and stress. Stress massively depletes gut flora. A poor diet, one rich in highly refined foods and sugar, will also mean you're less likely to have beneficial flora and more likely to have non-beneficial flora. It's said that we need to eat around 24 different types of vegetables to really give our flora the best chance of developing into the wide variety that we need for good health. So you need to be getting at least your 5 vegetables a day, but preferably much more than that. Infections can damage gut flora, disease in general, bottle feeding as well. I mean, we know that that the flora of bottle-fed babies is different to that of breastfed babies, as are children born by cesarean section rather than a natural birth. Old age, our flora diminishes, our good flora diminish as we age. Pollution, radiation, alcohol, toxins can all affect our gut flora. So we have a little look. In order to understand what happens in the gut when the gut flora becomes abnormal, we have to have a look at how the gut wall is built. The absorptive surface of intestines has this wonderful finger-like protrusions called villi and deep crypts between them. The villi are covered by epithelial cells called enterocytes, which complete the digestive process and absorb nutrients from food. On the top of each enterocyte is covered a thick layer of hair called microvilli or brush border. On each of these hair enzymes are sitting called brush border enzymes. These are the enzymes which accomplish the last steps of digesting food. Now we know that in celiac disease, these villi become dysfunctional, they tend to be worn down and they don't protrude anymore. Enterocytes work really hard, so they have to always be young and in good shape to do their job efficiently, as Mother Nature organised it in a most marvellous way. Each enterocyte only lives a few days. The cell regeneration process in the gut is very active. The enterocytes are constantly born at the bottom of the villi. They travel slowly up to the top, doing their job of digestion and absorption and getting more and more mature on the way. As they reach the top of the villi, they get shed off. This way, the epithelium of intestines gets constantly renewed to ensure its good ability to do its work well. This process of cell renewal is orchestrated by the gut flora. Animal experiments with sterilization of the gut found that when the beneficial bacteria living in the intestinal epithelium are removed, this process of cell renewal gets completely out of order. The time of cell travel from crypts to the top of the villi becomes a few times longer, which upsets the maturation process of absorptive cells and often turns them cancerous. The mitotic activity in the crypts gets significantly suppressed, which means that much less cells will be born there and much less of them will be born healthy and able to do their job properly. The state of the cells themselves becomes abnormal, or because their housekeepers, the healthy gut bacteria, are not there to take care of them. This is what happens in a lab animal with sterilized guts. So in a human body, the absence of good bacteria always comes with bad bacteria getting out of control, which makes the whole situation much worse. Without the care of beneficial bacteria, while under attack from the pathogenic bacteria, the whole structure of gut epithelium changes, starting a process of pathology or disease developing. The villi degenerate and become unable to digest and absorb food properly, leading to malabsorption, nutritional deficiencies, and food intolerances. Here we have a picture of a healthy enterocyte, which is well looked after by the normal healthy gut flora. You can see how thick his hair enzymes are. They're covered at the top there by brush border enzymes. These are the enzymes which complete the digestive process in the gut, and the poor chap on the right is the enterocyte in the gut of a GAPS person. Because the gut flora is abnormal, this cell is sick, his hair are broken off, and there are no enzymes on his head to digest food. So you can tell that the person with the sick enterocytes will not be able to digest and absorb food properly and will develop multiple nutritional deficiencies. So when the gut flora is abnormal, the gut deteriorates because it's not looked after properly. Pathogens and the toxins they produce damage enterocytes and open the junctions between them, called tight junctions. So what are tight junctions? Enterocytes and other epithelial cells in the body, for example, cells which form the blood-brain barrier, are tightly glued to each other so that foods are not supposed to absorb between them, but instead are taken into the enterocytes, analysed, and then let through the other side into the bloodstream. The tight junctions are formed and maintained by very special proteins, which they're like glue, Unfortunately, many pathogenic microbes in the abnormal gut flora produce toxins that dissolve the glue and open the tight junction, so the gut becomes porous and leaky, allowing through substances which should not be there. This is what we call leaky gut syndrome. Then the immune system finds these partially digested foods in the blood, does not recognize them as food, attacks them. This is how food allergies and intolerances develop. So there's nothing wrong with the food, it's the damaged gut lining that is the cause of this phenomenon. Food allergies and intolerances can cause any symptom in the body, from headaches, abnormal behavior, to arthritis, and the reaction can show itself immediately in a few hours or in a few days. As these reactions overlap with each other, it's impossible for the person to figure out what they are reacting to on any given day. Treatment has to concentrate on healing and sealing the gut wall with the GAPS nutritional protocol. Once the gut lining heals, food allergies and intolerances disappear. Unhealthy gut flora produces hundreds of very toxic substances which absorb through the damaged gut wall into the blood and get distributed around the body. When they get into the brain, they impair the brain function and cause mental symptoms, from inability to learn, poor memory, mood problems, behavioral problems, to anxiety, panic attacks, and psychosis. Getting into other organs in the body, these toxins cause other problems like arthritis, skin problems, asthma, allergies, and autoimmunity. Autoimmunity is born in the gut. When undigested foods and toxins get into the bloodstream, the immune system reacts to them. There are several mechanisms on how autoimmunity develops, and we'll discuss them in our further lessons. Here we'll just say that autoimmune attack on the body adds more damage on top of what toxins and microbes are doing. So here we have a little look at a typical GAPS scenario, looking at a child. GAPS children acquire abnormal gut flora from their mothers and fathers right from birth. Babies are born with an immature immune system, generally. This is how they're born. An establishment of normal gut flora in the first 20 days or so of life plays a crucial role in appropriate maturation of the baby's immunity. As these children acquire abnormal gut flora, they're left immune compromised, and as a result, they get one infection after another. When antibiotics are prescribed, every course of antibiotics damages the gut flora even further and has a direct damaging effect on the immune system of the baby. GAPS babies are not really fit to be vaccinated with the current vaccination protocol. Considering the fact that the proportion of babies being born with GAPS is growing, it's essential to review this current protocol. In the chapter on vaccination in Dr. Campbell McBride's book, she outlines a new strategy. Take a look at it. The change in vaccinations will only come from grassroots and not from the top. But there's a lot to suggest that there's a large proportion of the population that will react badly to vaccinations, and we need to identify who those children are and get them in a better place health-wise before we give them further vaccinations. So as a result of all the factors discussed, the baby finishes up with a very abnormal gut flora and compromised immunity. The usual weaning diet based on grains and processed milk feeds the pathogens in the gut, making the whole situation worse, leading to toxicity coming from the gut to the brain and other organs in the body. Entering the brain, the toxicity coming from the gut causes brain dysfunction in the child. GAPS children are born with normal brains, normal ears, normal eyes, and other sensory organs. And children use their sensory organs to collect information from the environment and pass it to the brain to be processed. That's how children learn to communicate, to behave appropriately, and to fit in this world. In GAPS children, their brains are clogged with toxicity and unable to process the information coming from sensory organs. This information turns into a noise from which the child just can't learn. Depending on the mixture of toxicity and severity of the whole problem, a child may develop autism or become hyperactive, dyslexic, dyspraxic, or develop a mixture of symptoms. Entering other organs, toxins cause physical problems in the child like eczema, asthma, chronic cystitis with bedwetting, arthritis, diabetes, that's type 1 diabetes, celiac disease, and other problems. This is Dr. Natasha's blog and informational website, and the website has a large section of frequently asked questions, which is updated every month. But stay tuned for the rest of the GAPS lessons, because we go into a lot more detail on different aspects of the protocol. So stay with us.